There are encounters that do not enter your life as a promise of love, but as a hidden door into parts of your soul you have avoided for years. An encounter with a narcissist is one of those doors, not gentle, not beautiful, but chillingly precise, as if the universe knows exactly where you need to be awakened. In the beginning, you see in them a deep, misunderstood soul, someone who only needs to be loved the right way in order to become whole. Yet, what your heart hopes for is far removed from what your soul has always known. The narcissist is not a mysterious being in need of salvation, but a dark mirror reflecting the parts of you that were broken and never named. When their mask begins to crack, you do not only see the emptiness in them, you see yourself. You see your fear of abandonment reflected in their indifference. You see your childhood wounds reactivated each time they withdraw in cold detachment. You see your pattern of sacrifice and endurance triggered whenever they need a new source of energy to fill the void within. Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, and in the moment you fully feel the pain of this relationship, you understand that the darkness you have long been running from has found its way back to you. The narcissist does not appear to destroy you, but to unlock layers of the unconscious, you sealed with kindness, with responsibility, with compassion, without boundaries. They force you to see what you once refused to face, that you gave too much because you feared you were unworthy without sacrifice, that you called pain love because it was the first form of love you ever knew, that you tried to heal others in order to avoid healing yourself. And then comes a moment no one warns you about, a moment every empath must face. The moment you stand amid the ashes of the relationship and realize that this collapse is not an ending, but an initiation rite into the journey of individuation, the journey of returning to your sacred self. The narcissist is not a romantic destiny. They are a catalyst, pushing you toward the place where your soul is meant to mature. They come not to teach you about them, but to teach you about you. And only when you understand this do you truly step into the 6 soul lessons. Lessons that arrive not through words, but through collapse, silence, departure, and your rebirth. This is a journey of awareness, of reclaiming power, and of discovering true light in the very place you once believed only darkness existed. If you are ready, the first lesson opens now. 1. Lesson 1. The narcissist comes to reveal your hidden wounds. From the very first moment, the narcissist does not enter your life as an attacker, but as a mirror that does not reflect your face, but the parts of your soul you have tried hardest to conceal. Empaths often believe they see the narcissist's true essence, a wounded soul waiting for gentle love. But the deeper truth lies elsewhere. It is the narcissist who sees your wounds before you see them yourself. They do not read your heart. They read the energetic fractures you never stitched back together. They sense your fear of abandonment as a potential source of supply. They see your patterns of serving, sacrificing, and enduring as folds they can easily cling to. And this is why the relationship begins with magic but ends with shockwaves. Jung said that the unconscious is always seeking expression, and when you refuse to see your own shadow, life will send a form that knows exactly how to touch it. The narcissist is that form. They do not create your pain. They activate it. They do not invent your wounds. They simply press precisely where you have never dared to touch. The emotional eruption you experience in a relationship with them is not a reaction to who they are, but a reaction to the repressed past within you. When the narcissist withdraws, you are not only hurt because they leave, you are hurt because your childhood abandonment wound is reawakened. When they minimize you, you are not only wounded by their coldness, you are wounded by the years you spent striving to prove your worth so that someone might finally see you as deserving. When they manipulate you, you are not only confused by the lies, You are confused because you learn to love through endurance, sacrifice, silence, and waiting for someone to finally see your pain. The narcissist merely plays the role of touching those silent strings. And it is precisely here that the lesson begins. You are not in pain because of what they are doing today. You are in pain because of what you never healed in the years before. You do not collapse because of one person. You collapse because a forgotten part of your soul is trying to return. A relationship with a narcissist is a violent collision with the old structure of your ego, where you try to become the good one, the understanding one, the enduring one, the healer, to avoid facing the truth that you, too, have shadows, neglected needs, and emotions suppressed to the point of suffocation. Jung called this the first step of individuation, the collapse of illusion so that the shadow can rise to the surface. The narcissist does not do this because they understand you, but because they only know how to exist by activating others. They are the catalyst that forces you to face yourself. They suppress you in just the right way so you can finally hear the voice of your soul. They hurt you in exactly the place that shows you what needs healing. They awaken frozen memories so you can understand that melting is the only way out. You cannot heal what you cannot see. And the narcissist is the one who makes the unseen more visible than anyone before. That is why the first lesson is not recognizing who they are, but recognizing who you have been for so long. That you loved through wounds, not through your heart. That you sacrificed not out of love, but out of fear of abandonment. That you stayed not because they were worthy, but because you never learned how to choose yourself. And when this truth lands, it is no longer pain. It becomes an invitation to enter the journey of soul reconstruction, where you learn to look directly at your own shadow and say, "It is time." This is the first lesson. The narcissist does not come to destroy you. They come to expose the part of you that needs healing so you can begin becoming the person your soul was born to be. 2. Lesson 2. You were not born to save anyone. Empaths believe they love more deeply than others. But the truth is more complex. Empaths often love by healing, by sacrificing, by becoming a refuge for broken souls. What they call love is sometimes a subtle form of fear. Fear that others will suffer, fear that others will leave, fear of being unimportant unless they save someone. And no one awakens this illusion more profoundly than a narcissist. In the empath's eyes, the narcissist is not toxic. They are a wounded child, an exhausted soul, someone who only needs a little more love to change. The empath sees the emptiness within them and mistakes it for an invitation to fill it. The empath sees the pain they hide and believes it is their mission. And so the relationship ceases to be love and becomes a ritual of self-immolation. The empath burns themselves to keep someone else warm. The narcissist understands this instinctively. They do not need you strong. They need you soft, dissolved, fully given. They need your boundless compassion to sustain their collapsing inner world. They need you to become a container for the rage they cannot regulate, a warehouse for the shame they refuse to face, an energy station they can drain endlessly without ever giving anything back. And the empath confusing love with salvation allows this to go on for far too long. Jung called this pattern the archetype of the wounded healer, the healer driven by their own unhealed wounds. Empaths do not act from strength, they act from unresolved pain. They save others to avoid healing themselves. They sacrifice to feel worthy. They endure because endurance is the language of love they learned in early life. And the narcissist, with their shadow, simply fits into that void like a karmic piece seeking completion. The brutal truth is this: you can never save a narcissist, not because you are not good enough, but because they do not want to be saved. A soul can only heal when it is willing to face its own shadow, and that is the very thing the narcissist fears most. They want your energy, not your healing. They want your submission, not your truth. They want satisfaction, not wholeness. And then comes the moment of exhaustion. Not because you loved them too much, but because you abandoned yourself for too long. You no longer hear your own soul, the only voice that ever tried to warn you. You hear only their cries. And that is the sign of the second lesson. The pain you are experiencing does not come from being unloved, but from having given your love in the wrong direction, to the wrong person, for the wrong mission. 3. Lesson 3. Your silence is more powerful than your love. Throughout the entire journey with a narcissist, there is one moment they are never prepared for. The moment you become silent. Not silence as punishment, not silence as manipulation, but the kind of silence that comes from a deep realization that you have nothing left to give, nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain. This is not an emotional withdrawal. It is the soul withdrawing from a battle it was never born to fight. A narcissist lives on reactions. Every explanation you give is a dose of validation. Every tear you shed is proof that they still have power. Every argument is a resurrection of their ego. In their empty inner world, your reactions are evidence that they still exist, that they still matter, that they still have influence over someone. And so when you fall silent, you do not merely exit the conversation, you remove their lifeline. Jung once said, "What we resist persists." And the narcissist is the embodiment of that law. The more you resist them, the more you are pulled into their storm. The more you argue, the more tightly you are bound to the story they create. The more you try to prove yourself, the deeper you sink into their shadow. But when you stop resisting, stop arguing, stop reacting, you dismantle their entire operating system. You drain the sap from a tree that has clung to you for far too long. For the empath, silence is the most painful lesson. You were raised to believe in dialogue, in repair, in understanding each other. You think that if you speak gently enough, clearly enough, sincerely enough, they will change. But the narcissist does not listen with the heart. They listen with the ego. And the ego understands only two languages: power and reaction. When you choose silence, you exit that power game. You shatter their living philosophy. I exist because I can control your emotions. Silence sends the narcissist into panic. Not because they lose you, but because they lose the emotional double they parasitized. When you go silent, the narcissist moves through a predictable sequence. Panic because the world no longer revolves around them. Rage because they no longer control you. Hoovering because they try to pull you back into your old role. Collapse because there is no supply left to confirm who they are. But the most important part of this lesson is not their breakdown, it is your awakening. The silence you once feared, because it echoed abandonment, becomes the doorway back to yourself. You realize that love does not need to be proven. Truth does not need to be repeated. Dignity does not need to be justified. And your soul does not need to be sacrificed to preserve anyone else's sense of importance. When you choose silence, you choose yourself, not through coldness, but through clarity. You refuse to participate in a play you were forced to star in for far too long. You refuse to be the mirror for their darkness. You refuse to be the supply for a soul unwilling to face itself. And in that very moment, the moment you stop trying, the truth is revealed. You never needed them to feel whole. They needed you to feel that they existed. 4. Lesson 4, you lost nothing. You only took back what was always yours. There is an illusion most empaths fall into after leaving a narcissist. The feeling that they have lost something irreplaceable, as if a part of themselves has been torn out, as if the heart has been hollowed. But the truth, the soul whispers only when you are finally still, is the exact opposite. You lost nothing at all. You simply became aware of what you had been giving away without knowing it. For a narcissist never truly takes your soul. No one can. They only exploit the places where you had already abandoned yourself. You did not lose love, you lost the illusion of who you believed they were. You did not lose connection, you lost the expectation that they were capable of reciprocating it. You did not lose your soul, you lost the role of the healer you once believed was your destiny. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. The only thing that truly disappeared was the version of you built on lack, fear, and unconditional self-sacrifice. The narcissist did not destroy you. They destroyed the internal structure you relied on to avoid facing the truth. And that destruction, however painful, was exactly what needed to happen for you to see your true nature beneath the fog of confusion. When the narcissist leaves, the emptiness you feel is not loss. It is newly liberated space, the space they once occupied. Your energy, your time, your intuition, your identity, your self-worth. You are not in pain because they took something from you. You are in pain because you are finally facing the emptiness you neglected for so long. This is not loss, this is return. In alchemy, there is a stage called separatio, the process of separating the soul from old dependencies to reclaim its pure essence. The relationship with a narcissist is the furnace of that stage. They strip you of old identities. The sacrificer, the carrier, the soother, the one who endures. And when these layers fall away, you feel disoriented, as if you are breaking apart. But in truth, you are becoming lighter because you are no longer bound to roles that were never yours. One of the hardest truths to accept is this. The part you loved in the narcissist was the part you had lost in yourself. You loved their confidence because you had forgotten your own inner voice. You loved how they made you feel special because you no longer saw your worth when standing alone. You loved the intensity, the drama, the overwhelm because it masked the places inside you that had been silent for too long. So when they disappear, you do not lose them. You are forced to face the parts of yourself that no one is hiding for you anymore. And then you realize something else. Everything you thought they took is returning to you, piece by piece, in a purer, truer, more sustainable form. Peace returns when you no longer have to guess someone else's moods. Intuition returns when you are no longer manipulated through ambiguity. Self-respect returns when you no longer compete with shadows to be chosen. Energy returns when you stop pouring into a bottomless well. And identity returns when you stop building it through someone else's eyes. A narcissist never has the power to steal your soul. What they do is reflect the places where you abandoned yourself so that you finally have the chance to come back. 5. Lesson 5. Their darkness is where you find your light. There is a paradox. Only those who have loved a narcissist truly understand. The absolute darkness they carry becomes the map that leads you back to your own light. Not because they teach you anything, but because they force you to look at what you never dared to face. Their darkness is not only cruelty, emptiness, or manipulation. It is a spiritual dimension where every illusion you built about yourself, every illusion you created just to survive, can no longer stand. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is not the enemy, it is the gatekeeper, and the narcissist becomes the living embodiment of that gate. When you enter a relationship with them, you step into a territory where everything you believed about yourself is tested. Your goodness, your kindness, your capacity to forgive, your concept of love, even your soul. They drown you in darkness, not so you will get lost, but so you can no longer keep calling darkness light. When they betray you, you realize you betrayed your own intuition. When they disrespect you, you see how you have neglected your own needs. When they project their ugliness onto you, you finally see every boundary you never set. They push you into a breaking point so complete there's nowhere left to run, and it is in that suffocating place that you touch the truth. Light never finds you in safe places. It appears only when darkness becomes so cramped that you can no longer tolerate living smaller. Their cruelty becomes the end of a sacred road where you are forced to stop and ask, What am I doing with my own soul? Not a question about them, a question about you. The narcissist does not awaken you through love, but through the collapse of everything you once mistook for love. The moment you hit the bottom of pain is the moment your inner light begins speaking in its own language. Clear, non-negotiable, impossible to ignore. In alchemy, this is nigredo, the darkest stage, where the old structure dies to prepare for rebirth. And here is a secret very few people understand. Nigredo does not happen in isolation. It happens inside relationship with an immature soul. The narcissist is the catalyst of nigredo in your life. They take you to the bottom, not so you will stay there, but so you finally realize you have lived for too long beneath your true light. Their darkness is not something you are meant to carry. It is something you are meant to outgrow. When you leave them, you do not merely walk away from a relationship, you walk away from an old version of yourself, a self built out of fear, people-pleasing, and the hunger to be chosen. And when the door closes, you realize what you once called madness, intensity, destiny was only the hollow drumbeat of darkness trying to pull you in so it could fill its own emptiness. But that emptiness was never yours, it was theirs. And you only entered it to find the light you lost while living for everyone else. This is the lesson no empath wants to learn. Yet every empath must. Their darkness is not where you are swallowed, it is where you are reborn. And when you rise from that land, you are no longer who you were when you entered. You have seen the truth. You have seen yourself. And there is no light stronger than the light born from the very darkness you overcame. 6. Lesson 6. Real love begins when you return to yourself. Love does not end when the narcissist leaves. It simply changes the person it is trying to return to. In the early stages, the empath believes the journey is about understanding the narcissist, healing them, keeping them, or proving something to them. But after all the chaos, silence, bruising, and awakening, the empath discovers the truth the soul has been whispering for a long time. The destination was never them, it was you. In Jungian psychology, individuation is the spiritual moment when a person stops looking for themselves through the eyes of others. And for the empath, that return begins the moment the narcissist disappears from their life. Not because the empath wants it, but because the soul has endured enough bargaining, trading intuition for peace, trading values for connection, trading the self for someone who was never born to stay. The most painful truth is also the most liberating. You never truly lost them. You only temporarily lost yourself. When the narcissist goes, a void appears, but not the void of loss, the void of return. A vast inner space opens up, terrifying at first, then so quiet it feels almost sacred. In that space, the empath begins to hear their own voice again, once drowned out by the noise of chaos. They begin to feel their body, their intuition, their real emotions again, parts that went numb while living inside the energy field of someone who only knows how to drain. Slowly, the empath understands that real love is not endless sacrifice, not the attempt to fix someone, not victory in a war against another person's shadow. Real love is the ability to stand in your own light without needing anyone else to witness it. And when the empath reaches this level of awareness, the architecture of the soul changes. Love is no longer aimed outward as a plea to be seen. It turns inward as an acknowledgement of one's own sacred nature. This does not make you cold, it makes you clear. It does not make you love less, it makes you love more correctly. When you return to yourself, you begin to love without losing yourself, give without becoming empty, observe without being swallowed by chaos, set boundaries without trembling, leave without guilt. The awakened empath becomes a different kind of human being, quieter, stronger, more discerning. They no longer attract narcissists because their light no longer leaks through wounds. It becomes a whole light and the narcissist cannot approach that light without being forced to face themselves. So the final lesson is not understanding the narcissist, forgiving them, or decoding their darkness. The final lesson is understanding you and understanding why you gave your heart to someone who did not know how to hold it. You were not born to dissolve into another person's soul. You were born to return to yourself, to love from fullness, not from lack. And when you do that, the love you give to others becomes light, not an attempt to escape darkness. In the end, when the journey has carried you through someone else's darkness and led you back to your own light, you realize that the experience with a narcissist was not a failed chapter of love, it was an initiation. You entered as an unprotected empath, and you emerged as a soul that has seen its true nature. The chaos, the breakage, the silence, the withdrawal, the rebirth, everything was perfectly arranged to bring you to lessons you should have learned long ago. You learned that your deepest wounds were not created by them, but revealed by them. You learned that you were not born to save anyone, especially those who refuse to save themselves. You learned that your silence has the power to shatter an entire structure of control you once believed you could never escape. You learned that you lost nothing, you simply reclaimed the parts of your soul you abandoned while loving the wrong person. You learned that their darkness was never meant to drown you, but to guide you back to the place where you forgot to look for light. And above all, you learned that real love was never in someone else's hands. It begins the moment you return to yourself. This is no longer a story about a narcissist. This is no longer a story about pain, betrayal, or collapse. This is a story about becoming, about awakening, about returning, about the rising of an empath who finally sees their own essence not through someone else's eyes, but through the very experience that once brought them to their knees. Jung said that we do not find light by running from darkness, but by entering it with eyes open. And that is exactly what you did. You walked into another person's psychological maze, but at the center of that maze, you found the path home. Not the home of memory, not the home of two people, but the home of your soul. If there is one final truth to carry with you, it is this. The narcissist was never your destiny. They were the final test before the universe handed you back the strongest version of yourself. Once you pass through it, the old door closes, and the door to a new life opens, with a stillness, a clarity, and a power only souls who have walked through darkness can hold. You are no longer who entered this journey. You have become the person your soul has always been longing to become. And from here on, no one, not even another person's darkness, can ever make you forget your own light again.